I have a dream. Some of the most famous words ever uttered on American soil. And those words were spoken from the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. at the March on Washington in 1963 by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And what makes those words so famous is not just the eloquence with which he spoke, it's not just the inspiration with which he proclaimed, but it was the actions that his words incited in others. See, the true mark of the impact of our words is the actions that they are inciting in other people. And few words measure up to the impact of Jesus. Throughout this Famous Last Words series, we've talked about some of Jesus' famous last words, and today we look at this beautiful interaction that takes place between Jesus and Peter in John 21. So if you have your Bible, would love to encourage you just to look there with us as we walk through this. But just before this passage, Jesus was betrayed by Judas. He was arrested and he was mocked and beaten beyond recognition, and eventually he was led up to experience this excruciating, painful death on the cross. But here's the beauty of the gospel, is that the story doesn't end there. See, Jesus resurrected 3 days later, proving that he was victorious over death, he was victorious over hell, and victorious over the grave. And he began to appear to his disciples and a host of other witnesses, just as a testament to show that he was truly the Son of God. In the beginning of chapter 21, Jesus comes to the disciples and they're out fishing on the sea, and he asked them if they had caught anything yet. They said, no, not yet. So Jesus instructed them, he said, to cast your net on the other side of the boat. And so they did as he said. And they were unable to haul in all that they had caught because their nets simply couldn't handle it. And if this seems familiar to you, it's because it is. This exact same scene takes place early on in the Gospels when Jesus first called his disciples into ministry. And now after the resurrection, Jesus is doing the exact same thing as a means to reveal himself yet again to his disciples. And so when Peter realized that it was truly Jesus, he literally jumped off the boat, swam into the waters, and swam all the way to the shore to meet Jesus on the shore. When the rest of the disciples got there, it says that Jesus invited them to eat breakfast. And so we pick up the story there in verse 15. It says this. It says, when they had finished eating breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? When Jesus poses this question to him, obviously he was asking Peter, do you love me more than the other disciples? And if you think back to John 13, this may seem like a weird question, but it's spurred on by one of Peter's own statements. Peter proclaimed that his love for Jesus was profound. He said he would never fall away from Christ because of the love that he had for him. In fact, he even went as far as to say, I would lay down my life for you, Jesus. And yet we know soon after those words, he denied him. And so Jesus asked him the question, and Peter said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. And so Jesus said, then feed my lambs. Odd request, just to feed his lambs. Verse 16 goes on and it says this, Jesus said to him a second time, Simon, son of John, he says, do you truly love me? And Peter said to him, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. So Jesus said to him, then tend my sheep. And then he said to him a third time, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Notice Peter's reaction. It says Peter was grieved because he said to him the third time, do you love me? And so he said to him, Lord, you know everything. God, you know it all. Of course you know that I love you. And Jesus said to him, okay, then feed my sheep. This may seem redundant, this may seem kind of odd, but you're probably seeing a pattern that's taking place here. This interaction here stands in direct contrast with Peter's denial of Christ. And Peter noticed it too. Did you notice the third time when Jesus asked him, it says that Peter was grieved. Literally, his heart was aching because Jesus asked him a third time. 3 times Peter was asked, do you know Jesus? Are you connected with him? Do you belong to him? Are you aware of him? And all 3 of those times, Peter denied him. 3 times Peter said, no, I don't have any interaction with this Jesus of Nazareth. And so here Jesus asked him a much similar question, but flip it. He says, do you really love me? Peter, are you sure you love me? I hear you keep saying that, but Peter, do you love me? And each of these 3 times, when Peter proclaims his love for him, Jesus expected Peter to act on that love. He said, if you really love me, then you're going to feed my lambs. Peter, if you really love me, then you're going to tend my sheep. Peter, if you really love me, then you are going to feed my sheep. Simply put is this: Peter, if you really love me, it should incite in you a response to follow my will and to do what I've set out for you to do. It should incite in you to do the task that I have given you. If you love me, action should follow, Jesus is saying. So today I simply want to ask you the question: how many times have you denied Christ? And I don't just mean by your words. I don't just mean if you said, I don't really believe in Jesus, or I don't really belong to Jesus. I mean, how many times by your actions, the things that you've done, the things that you've been a part of, have you said that you don't really belong to Him? Perhaps your actions paint a different family portrait. Growing up, I loved sports. I loved playing all different types of sports, but nothing compared to putting my family name on my back. When I walked on the field, people to know that I belonged to the Upchurches. It was a special feeling. And I loved having my name on my back. But the thing is everywhere I went, people could know me by the name on my back, and I couldn't separate myself from the identity that I had placed on me. Well, much the same way, we bear the identity of Christ on our back, and it's heartbreaking that so many of us bear His name on us, and so many of us carry it to places it never should go. And we do things with it that it never should be a part of and never should do. But here's the good news. As many times as we fail, as many times as we fall short or even fall away, Christ is there calling us back to action. It's that simple. And so today, look at these famous last words of Jesus and let it incite in you an action. Let it incite in you to do something, and that is simply this: to love Him and to follow what He has laid out for you to do. I hope this series has challenged you to hear the words of Christ, and I hope that it's incited in you an action to follow Him, to love Him, and to do what He would have you to do every single day, even in these circumstances. We love you.